Okay, so usually before the weekend of storytelling, we practice, Dana and I, and this, I decided to do this story just driving over here, so you guys have to bear with me. The reason I decided to do it was I was listening to This American Life, and they were talking about a guy who rescues people from jumping off a bridge in China. They jump off into the Yangtze River. And you know, that's a big problem with bridges. You know, the one here, they put up nets and phones and all that. So this guy has made a life of that. And this reporter was looking, was up there doing a story about this guy, and the guy had gone off for some reason or hadn't gotten there yet. And this guy that's doing the story sees somebody getting ready to jump off the bridge, and he goes and stops him from jumping off the bridge. And when he rescues this person, it becomes a life-changing event. And I know this because this situation of saving someone happened to me. I worked for a newspaper, and at the end of the year, at Christmas time, we'd always have this big company gathering where people came from different departments. And I was in the journalism side. So we didn't talk to the people in the ad side or anything because we didn't want to be influenced, right? And so this was the first time that, you know, that everybody kind of got together. And we had every year had turkey and dressing and the usual Christmas, Thanksgiving type fare. But then we got a publisher who was Chinese, and she decided we would have shellfish for our Christmas dinner. And so she also changed it to where it wasn't going to be games and prizes. We were all going to get up and do reports of our successes that year and meeting our numbers and goals. So I knew this was not going to be my type of Christmas celebration. So I sat right next to the door, and the back door that led out into a hallway. And there were about maybe 150 people there. This was back when newspapers were a little better heeled. And so I'm sitting there, and everybody's getting up, and they're passing the microphone from one person to the other who gets up and reports, and it is just deadly. And I'm getting ready to sneak out, and just as and the last person is the publisher. She's getting up. She gets up, starts her thing, and I'm like, okay, I really can't stand anymore. But before I can get to the door opens, and a guy comes in. And he says, excuse me, and she kind of keeps talking, and then, you know, he's like really loud. I have to ask, does anyone have a Benadryl? And I'm sitting right there, I mean, like we were this close, and I said, why do you need a Benadryl? And he said, oh, Tara is allergic to shellfish. Uh-oh. I jumped up and I said, call 911. And I ran downstairs to my office, and I pulled out my EpiPen that I carry with me everywhere I go. And I ran back up 2 flights of stairs, and I get up and I said, where is she? And I didn't see her. And he said, oh, we gave her some privacy. So I go back to this little room where they have her, and I come in, and I heard her wheeze, and then I didn't hear anything else coming from breath sounds. And so I came in and I said, Tara, here's an EpiPen. Have you ever, you know, for you to use? And she just does like this. And I said, you've never used an EpiPen? And she shook her head no. And her lips are getting a little blue, and her face is just huge. And so I take it off, and I said, okay, and I, boom, hit her in the thigh with this EpiPen. And her eyes got really wide, and I said, you'll breathe in a second. And then she took this huge inhale. And it was, to this day, one of the happiest moments of my life. And so I went out and I said, hey, forget the ambulance, take her to the hospital right now because I only have one, and sometimes you need a second one. And so they throw her in, take her, and she goes to the hospital. And a few days later, she comes back and she comes in the office and she says to me, you know, the doctor said you saved my life. And I remember just this feeling of, oh my God, you know, what if I hadn't been at the door? What if I had snuck out earlier? All these things that could have happened. So my friend Dana decides that she's going to write to the publisher and the editor and say, hey, maybe we should have emergency medical things on hand. And because Melanie had to save Tara's life. And so she got a note back saying, did Melanie consider the implications for the company, the liability for the company when she performed a medical procedure? And so, you know, I ended up, you know, thinking, okay, maybe this isn't, you know, a good thing to do, but I would do it again a million times, right? So, the next year, I think it was next year, we had the more traditional fair, and then the year after that, we had traditional fair again, and I was sitting at a table with some people who I didn't know, younger people who had come in the company, and they said, yeah, did you hear what happened at a Christmas party a couple of years ago? And there was this girl, and she had an allergic reaction, and the girl that saved her got fired. and that would have been a life-changing event, but it wasn't. Saving her life